We are recording. Okay, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's really great to see you all. I am Felicia Fahey. I'm the founder of Fahey Associates, and I'm joined by my associate, Shanley Jacobs, today. We are Fahey Associates. I am the founder, and I have built this company to help students align who they are, what they want to do with college admission expectations. And we do this in a way that is authentic for the student and inspires the student and allows them to grow into who they are through the process. So we're really excited to be here today. The question that we're going to be answering is the question that's on every student's mind right now, which is, how many essays do I have to write? And we'll be doing a slideshow. This slideshow or the presentation will be available. We'll be recording it and making it available usually within no later than 72 hours. So you can look for that in your email. You'll also be receiving a follow-up handout, which includes a bunch of writing tips for the college admissions essays. And then tomorrow we will be posting on our Facebook page a list of 100 supplement prompts, the most common ones, so that you can just go in there and take a look at them and see, kind of get an idea of what essays you need to write this year or next year. We know that there are quite a few of you coming in for this current application cycle, another large group of people for next year, and also people coming in from 26 and 27. So really just super happy to have you all and have the opportunity to speak to you about what we're doing here. The protocol for tonight, I will be running the slideshow. We will take questions at the very end. You can post your questions in Q&A. Shanley will be fielding those questions. We do ask that if to keep questions on topic tonight with essays as much as possible, and also generally questions that are applicable to everyone. If you have questions specific to your student, please feel free to reach out to us and email us, and we'd be happy to answer your question. If there is a question and we don't get to it, again, please feel free to email us, and we're more than happy to answer any questions you have. And so with all that said, I will go ahead and start our slideshow. Let's see here. All right, here we are. So how many college essays are there to write? We're going to take a look at that within the context of the applications themselves. There are actually 4 types of applications that most students are dealing with or filling out in this process. There's the University of California application, so the UC application. There are essays required for that application. The common application, which includes private school applications. It also includes quite a few out-of-state applications. And by that, I mean University of Washington, University of Oregon, Boulder, Oregon State, Colorado State, University of Massachusetts, Amherst, all of these schools that are state schools but are not in the state of California. They also, many of them have essays. There are a few outliers. So MIT and Georgetown, you will not find them on the Common App. They have their own application, and they also have a pretty rigorous set of essays for you to write. The California State University application is separate. It's on CSU Mentor. If you just say apply, type in to Google, apply state university application, you'll pull it up. That application is strictly informational and does not have any essays. So today we're going to be focusing on the UC apps, the common application, and then we'll be looking at the types of supplement questions that we're seeing in most of the applications today. UC essay requirements, the UCs refer to their essay questions as the personal insight questions. And they really mean that is they want you to reflect on who you are, and they want you to give them insight to who you are. There are 8 topics. We're going to take a look at them. You need to choose 4 to write your essays. and each essay should be 350 words or no more than 350 words. And then in the UC application, you also have the opportunity to provide an additional statement, and I'll be going over that at the end because the rules for that are very similar to the rules for the common application. I have summarized the list of UC essay topics here just for ease of understanding. They are usually a sentence and a half. You can very easily find them. We'll be sending them. You'll have a link to them in the handout we'll be providing to you, but you can also just type in UC essay prompts and you'll get to the personal insight questions page, where they not only provide the questions, but they also provide you with additional questions to help you brainstorm and prompt your thinking. There are basically 8 questions here. They all want you to describe and sort of track the development of certain aspects of your life. So one is leadership experience, how you express your creative side, a talent, or how you've developed a talent or a skill, how you've improved your community or your school, how you've overcome an educational barrier or taken advantage of an educational opportunity, how you've developed your major interests or an academic field of interest to you, I think are the exact words that they use there, a significant challenge you've overcome. And then they have this standout essay question, which is, please tell us how you feel that you stand out from your peers. This is an interesting question. One thing that many colleges or many students' families don't understand is that they are actually competing with their peers in high school, right? So when admissions reps are looking at essays, they're looking within the context. They're looking at your application within the context of your high school. They're looking at it in comparison to your peers. And so they're looking at you inside of that environment. You come from a particular high school and they're examining you in comparison with your peers. So partly what they're asking in this question is, how are you different from your peers at your high school? And that helps them to read your application. We have some pretty short tips here for the UC essays. We think the best way to think of it is sort of a narrative resume. They're not looking for creative writing in here. So they don't want to see scene setting. They don't want to see dialogue. They don't want to see creative description. So you really want to stay out of creative prose and creative discourse. It's fine to be creative and to have really great writing and to be expressive and use unusual, use words that are kind of your words and feel like words that you enjoy using, but you don't want to step into the kind of realm of creative writing, right? So you can write creatively, but don't do creative writing for the UCs. The reason for that is they are trying to understand you and evaluate you within their rubric, and they need to understand in sort of very concrete terms who you are, what you've done, how you've impacted your peers, how you've overcome difficulties so that they can complete their form, just to simplify. So narrative resume, don't be creative, don't write creative writing, be creative, but don't use creative writing. Respond like you would in an interview. So in an interview, you wouldn't speak in creative prose, right? You might be a little bit creative in the way you say something, or you might have a opening line that is fun or funny, but you're not going to actually use creative discourse in an interview. So that's a great way to think about it and how we sort of frame it for students. You definitely want to focus on growth, your development, and your impact in all of these essays, one way, shape, or another. They're sort of looking for linearity. Where did you start? Where did you go? What did you do? Be really concrete, provide detail, provide anecdote. Don't provide a lot of anecdotes so that most of your essay is anecdotal. You want to provide an anecdote to prove, to support the points that you're making about your development and growth. So those are the UC essays. The common application essay requirements are quite different. So the common application, they're asking for a personal statement. They're asking also that you reflect, but they really want to know a story about who you are. So they want to know about your personality and your core experiences and sort of what makes you who you are. And in those essays, there you can take as much creative license as you wish. The questions, there are 7 of them. We'll take a look at them now. You choose one. You need to write an essay of up to 650 words. In addition to this personal statement, each college that you're applying to will also be asking you questions. And it's important to understand that those questions are as, if not more important to each college than the personal statement. So you don't want to lose time sinking all of your energy into the personal statement and then leave the supplements for last. You need to work on those supplements at a good pace. You need to revise them. You need to take them very seriously. And we'll be kind of talking about that in more depth in just a moment. There are something between 1 and 4 questions per college. This year, we've seen that they've added more questions. Their essay length is longer. So some essays have gone from 250 to 400 words. Some have gone from 400 to 650 words. So in general, we're seeing that the bar has been raised. And we see that in general each year, application and questions and sophistication of the questions and the number of the questions seems to go up. In the common application, you'll also have an additional statement. And again, we'll be talking about that. It's a very important piece of your application, and we'll be discussing in depth what you should do there. Common App prompts. So these, again, we're going back to the personal statement. Just to be clear, there are 7 questions here. The first one is tell us, let's go back. Share with us the story of your background, identity, or interest or talent. And this is sort of, they describe it as, tell us a story that your application would be incomplete without it. So this is sort of like, you don't know who I am unless you know this about me, right? So a lot of our students answer this question. Tell us about a time that you learned from a challenge, a setback, or a failure. That question was added just a couple of years ago. Tell us about a time that you challenged a belief. This one has been new. So it came out right after COVID. Tell us the story of how your gratitude towards someone affected or motivated you. And they also have an interesting detail in here that gratitude, that there was something surprising about the way that you felt gratitude. So that's an interesting new question. It's always fun for me to see new questions because these questions have mostly been the same for the last, 12, 15 years. Question 5, tell a story about an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a process of growth. I really love this question. I think it's great. It really allows students to step into how they've developed during the high school years, and they can talk about all kinds of different things and how they've grown from it. This one is sort of an intellectual vitality question. So write about your fascination with a topic or a concept that you find so engaging that you lose track of time. Lovely question. I love that one. And then finally, any topic of your choice. So what we generally ask students to do is, first of all, make a list of all the things, the experiences that they could write about that make up who they are. So again, core experiences. These could be things that they do on a daily basis. Students often, we've had some great essays about singing in the shower. It can be something that actually happened that was life-defining. It can be something that happened in the past that set the tone for who the student has become. But they make a list. We recommend that they make a list of those topics, and then really try to pinpoint the topic that they feel shares their personality or their perspective, but really shows who they are. And usually there are 2 or 3, right? And then they can play with those topics and sort of see where they go and see if they feel they have enough to say. And they can even write a draft. So we definitely recommend just kind of giving an essay a whirl, see where it goes. And then sometimes if a student feels like this is just not, it's not happening, they move on to the next topic. So that's a great exercise. Parents, I often, recommend that you do this yourself, that you go ahead and do that exercise on your own, just to sort of empathize with your students, and remember, kind of also do the exercise of thinking about who you are and what experiences that you've had that have been meaningful to you, and which ones are really core to who you are. You have more experiences because you've been through more life, but it's a great exercise. Stories that we've loved, intellectual reflection on eating popcorn while watching TV with parents, essay titled Dear Art, an essay on brushing, a student wrote about brushing her teeth, why we have family game night at my house, falling in love with Mr. Scrabble's words. This was actually an amazing love letter to Scrabble. It was one of my favorite essays last year. My imaginary friend who helped me find myself. This essay was actually written quite a few years ago. I share it with my team because it's one of my all-time favorites. But it really allowed you to, again, enter the imaginary world of the student. So you get to understand their imagination, and then you also get to see them kind of grappling with this imaginary world they've created. Is it real? Is it not real? And then how has that kind of shaped their sense of identity? So it's just a really fun essay. We've had quite a few essays about dealing with conflict on a team, which is just really, I think, part of our times that students are, I'm very happy to see, really having conversations that aren't always easy. Sometimes they don't go the way that people want them to go. But there's certainly a lot more conversation and conflict occurring in our among our teens today than there were like 6 years ago or 7 years ago. So it's really great to see students gaining the maturity to talk about that experience of working through conflict, being a mediator on a team, handling situations delicately. Sports are generally recommended. You don't write about them because they're so common that it's very hard to stand out. So we always recommend to go into concrete details, pick something in particular about your relationship to a sport if you really feel you have to write about sports. So one of my other favorite essays of all time, there are actually two of them. One student wrote about her relationship to the erg machine for her rowing. And it was set in in a barn that, I still feel like I've been there, but I haven't. And another one wrote about how she allowed herself to choose a different pair of sneakers every year as a way of motivating her in cross country. So you can write about sports, but you need to do it in a way that really, again, targets your personality and allows you to shine. Overcoming autism, learning differences, ADHD, ADD. We have, students are challenged by all kinds of things these days and are writing about it. We'll be talking about this in the additional statement. It might be something that you write in the additional statement if you really want to highlight something else about your personality, but often those are the stories that some students feel very closely tied to, and they have a lot to say and they come out beautifully. So, favorite topics, sort of favorite stories, some of them, there are many, but that kind of gives you an idea of some of the flavor of some of the essays we've enjoyed. Tips for the Common Apt personal statement. This is the big trap. Every students, I think, and I think even parents, think they know what admissions officers expect, and it's really a trap. What happens when you do that is that you start writing the essay for someone else and you stop writing it for yourself. And so what we always tell students at the beginning is write it for yourself first. Give yourself that liberty to be honest, to be you, to really relax, because in the end, admissions folks are reading high school applications because they love high school students. They love learning about high school students. They want to meet high school students. So they don't want to hear what a parent editing a student's essay sound like, or what a student the writing for the admissions office sounds like. They want to really connect to the student. So I would say that's sort of the first trap. And I always tell students, just again, make a list of all the things that are special about your life, the things that you've been through, the things, the experiences that you've had. You've got all the material. Everybody has the material. You don't have to go outside of yourself to find material. Choose a topic that captures your personality. I know I'm sort of repeating this, but it is the most important thing, or your perspective. A lot of admissions officers say, we want to know your perspective, your core experience. And again, you want to stand out from your peers. So you want to avoid anything that anybody else can say. And I'll talk about that in just a second. You want to tell a good story. So a good story has an arc. A good story draws you in. There's usually a hook. A good story is often feels conversational, like the student just spoke it to you. So one way you can get to that, students, is by using voice memo and actually telling your story out loud. If it's awkward, you can always get a friend, a sibling, or a parent to sit on the other side of the computer and speak to the computer while you're telling the story. It's a great way to get out a first draft and also to have a story that's really natural. So that's, just telling a good, most of us do a pretty good job of telling a story if it's a story that matters to us. And sometimes it's harder to actually write that story. You want the story to also be in some way about transformation and change. That's the arc. And ideally, how you've used your transformation or change to impact others. So you do want to avoid telling stories that anyone could tell. So that's exactly what I tell students. Is there anyone that could write this story? And if there is, then it's not fresh enough. You need to go deeper into your own experience. You need to think about some details that are truly yours, that don't just like anybody else. You could put anybody's name on this essay and it would work out. So that's where often sports, allergies, any kind of common experience, the big game, climbing a mountain, that's an essay that's been written quite a bit. The other thing to be really aware of, and this is sort of the zeitgeist of admissions the last couple of years, admissions officers are really looking to see how you've had an impact on your peers. They're wondering what you're going to be like as a student on their campus. And so they're very interested in knowing how you positively affect those around you. So you want to avoid navel gazing in this essay and in this personal statement and in most of any writing that you're doing. And by that, I mean, you don't want to just be you closed in your own world, in your story. You want to make sure that you're connecting yourself to others, that you're thinking about the ways that whatever experience you've had has had an impact on others. So that's really important, to kind of see yourself as part of something larger and not as separate. So, and then finally, the tip that we really have, and this is probably one of the things that's hard for students because they may have multiple people looking at their essay, but it's really maintaining their language in their own natural casual words and their own natural language and their conversational tone. And often parents will step in and feel that the student sounds very immature, or they want to dress up their language, or they need more sophisticated phrasing and verbs. And this is really a mistake. So there's nothing that an admissions, and I've seen this over again, I've witnessed admissions readers reading over essays, and you just see the way that they chuckle, they love the feeling of reading something that sounds like a teen. So teens have their own language, they have their own way of speaking. It's really important to allow that natural, it's a genre really, but to allow that natural voice to come through and to not iron it out. So as soon as an essay feels like it's been ironed out by an editor, a parent, a teacher, anybody, it stops to feel, you stop feeling connected to the student. So that's really important. We're now going to go on to the additional statement. So the additional statement, there's a UC additional statement, and there's a common application additional statement. And these are located in the Common App in the writing section, and they're located in the, I think just right after the essays in the UC application. This is truly what they write here. The prompt here is, if you feel there's something missing from your application, or that your application would be incomplete without it, please share it here. So you have to be very careful here. Admissions officers have a short amount of time. If you're lucky, they've got 30 minutes. If you're unlucky, they've got 5. So they do not want to get here and see a whole bunch of writing. They don't want to see a long essay. You've got 650 words, but you certainly should not use them all. And you really, really, all you're doing here is really providing insight to things that are very, very important so that they understand who you are, that are not present in your essays, neither in your supplements, nor in your activities list, nor in your personal statement. So it's very important that this is new information. It's original information. You're not repeating yourself. What do they want to see here? Well, when they look at your transcript, if they see for example, let's just say in the first semester of your junior year, you were sick and you were out for 5 weeks and your grades went down, and then they went back to normal in the second semester. An admissions reader is going to go look at your additional statement. They're going to say, okay, what happened? Something happened here. They might look at the counselor's report and see if something's been noted there. So you want to explain in very clear terms, this is not an essay. It's just in the second semester or the first semester of my junior year, I came down with mono. I was out for 5 weeks. By the time I got back to class, I was unable to recover and my grades suffered as a result. You will see in the second semester of my junior year that my grades improved, and I'm expecting to have the same performance in my senior fall. So that's really important. Other things that you might want to detail here are how you've dealt with learning challenges, because most students that have learning challenges are working 3 or 4 times harder. So how did you overcome those learning challenges? What have you done? Again, keep it short, no more than 2 to 3 sentences. A health-related issue, if you've been dealing with a repeated ongoing health condition or something happened at some point to you and held you back, you would want to, again, detail that in a very succinct way. If you've taken college courses, and many students have, especially during COVID, they may not be included on your transcript. So because they may be dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment classes, but many high schools don't really offer that option. So if you took college courses, you want to list them here. So you put the name of the institution that you attended, De Anza College or Foothill College. You're going to list the name of the courses and you're going to list the grade that you received. There's no need to explain anything here. You're just listing, here are my grades from my college courses. They're not on my transcript. You will also want to contact the college, the community college or the college. Maybe you took a summer course and you received a grade, and you want to ask for your transcript to be provided to the colleges you're applying to. That is a requirement from most colleges. Another thing that you might write about are family circumstances. Often students have gone through divorces and they've been emotionally distracted for, can be a year or 2 years, or there's been some other event in their life that has made it difficult for them to focus. And then they've overcome that event and they've recovered and they've been able to pull up their grades or perform better or take on more extracurriculars or whatever it might be. So that would be another thing that you would want to detail in a very succinct way here. And then the other thing that I highly recommend is that if there is one activity that you feel like is super critical to understanding who you are and what you've done, you can provide 3 sentences about that activity. And it should show up as something on your activity list where you're really putting in a lot of time. It might be something that you feel is really important and not necessarily something that took a lot of time, like an internship where you learned a lot, or a research internship where you were helping a professor on a project and you want to provide the abstract. So you can do that. You should put the abstract in your own words because abstracts are often filled with academic jargon. You want to be, again, succinct and clear. You don't want to overwhelm them with something long. That's not what they're looking for, and you don't want to irritate admission readers. So basics, again, just to be repetitive. Whatever you include, it must warrant attention. So it better be good. That's sort of, the feeling when admissions goes in and they see there's material there, it better be good. Keep it short. Do not provide an additional essay or repeat yourself. that's the additional statement, and you may all have questions about that, and I'm happy to answer them shortly. Supplement essay topics. So we're seeing a few new ones over the last couple of years. There is the major statement, which has been around forever, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. There is a new impact statement. So many colleges, especially religious schools, are asking, and state schools and schools in cities, which I find super interesting, are asking, how will you have an impact on our student body? Or if there's an issue that you really care about, how will you pursue that issue? How are you a change maker? How are you, sort of that same UC question, how are you impacting your community? Diversity, there are diversity questions on many applications this year. Some have swapped out their diversity question for an impact. So like NYU did this. Boston College has always, or Boston University has always had a why our college, and they've added an impact statement. So it's been an interesting year. We had a sense that the essay questions might change this year, and sure enough, they did. There's a community question. The community question has been around for a long time. Some colleges are adopting it. Some have let go of the community statement and are now having a major statement. And then finally, this is the most common question. So the two most common questions are major and why our college. And those questions are generally 2 out of 4 colleges have them. So let's take a look at how those prompts are worded. This is the major statement. This is a major statement from USC. Describe how you plan to pursue your academic interests and how you want to explore them specifically at USC. And this is the part that students often forget to really pay attention to. So very important that you read the whole question and you answer the whole question. This is really how, don't tell us about your interest in your major or how you developed it, but how are you planning to pursue your major at our university? So that's the question they're asking. Now, other colleges like University of Wisconsin ask, tell us how you got interested in your major and why you want to pursue it at the University of Wisconsin. Boulder changed their question this year to, why do you want to pursue your major at Boulder? So this is kind of a combined why and major essay. But it's quite common this year. As I say, 2 out of 4 essays have it. And some of the colleges will give you an opportunity to address a first and second major. USC asks you to do it in 1 essay. Urbana-Champaign gives you the opportunity to do that in 2 separate, very short essays. Impact. Many colleges have this essay, USD, Santa Clara, NYU. We are looking for peacemakers, and it's a long list. Peacemakers, change makers, global citizens, boundary breakers, creatives, and innovators, right? So pretty high bar here, lots of expectations. And then what they do here is they give you a quote, a series of quotes from different people, and they say, choose one of the quote and let us know why it inspires you, keeping in mind what they are looking for, right? So it's a bit of a combined question. It's the hardest question I've ever seen on the NYU application. This question, it has been on the University of San Diego application for 3 years now. Very similar. So again, this one is, what are you doing? Sort of what motivates you to impact those around you? So again, impact is really important. Essay range generally is between 250 and 500 words. The diversity question is always says something, and they're coming in quite, University of Miami has one. Let's see, who else? I mean, there's so many of them have this question this year. University of Michigan has a community statement, but there's a little bit of this in here. We'll take a look. They're slightly different. Describe a personal experience. So this one I chose because it's a little bit more nuanced. They're laying out different ways in which you might experience conflict or diversity. So they're saying, describe a personal experience in which you persevered through adversity, rejected discrimination, learned a lesson, or were inspired by the courageous actions of others. And then how you plan to, how you plan to apply what you learned to our community, right? So Oregon says, we're ducks, but we're each different. Tell us how you're going to be yourself and support the diversity at our school. University of Washington kind of has more of a community statement, which looks like this. Everybody belongs to different groups. What group do you belong to? And what's your place within it? But at Washington, they also want to know, and how will this help you to impact our peers, the people that you'll be going to school with? University of Michigan has had this question forever. This is verbatim how it's written. You have 250, 300 words to answer it. And same for 300 words for the University of Washington as well. So they're slightly different. They are different questions. They're trying to get a bit at the same thing, but different kind of aspects of who you are. Most common question, and the question that you really have to answer well, is why do you want to be at our university? And as I mentioned, this might get tucked into the major essay, but often it stands by ourselves. Why do you want to attend Brown? Why do you want to attend Syracuse? Why do you want to attend Boston University? Most of the colleges have this embedded in one of their supplements, or they're asking it directly. Boston has two questions. They've usually only had this question for many years. What excites you about Boston University? They now give you an opportunity to write about a social issue that you care about. This is a really important question. And this is the time of year where students are tired. They're really kind of overwhelmed by what's going on at school. They're sad that summer's over. We all are. They're back at school. Things are really ramping up. It's the senior year. There's a lot going on. And these are the questions where they start to slide. So they stop doing as much research as they should. They don't step in fully to really remember why they're excited by a school and to do the homework that they need to do to write the essay well. We encourage students to take notes and go, when they visit the school, either online or in person, to take notes so that when they get here, they can pull that information out and they're not starting from scratch, and they can jog their memory about what they liked. So that really takes them a long way. And we've had quite a few students saying, oh, phew, I'm so glad I have that, because I pretty much forgot exactly what I loved. So it's important to look at the identity of the college. Colleges are not the same. Sometimes if you're looking at too many websites at once, they might seem like they aren't, but there are research institutes, there are colleges that are more creative, there are colleges that are more entrepreneurial. Colleges have their own approach to the university requirements. They have things like the open curriculum, or reduced major requirements, like at Wash U, the open curriculum at Brown. There are schools like Santa Clara where they're really emphasizing community impact. So it's important to understand how these colleges see themselves, because the people reading your applications are steeped in the identity of that school. They own it. They may have even been students at that school. They may have been working there for 2 years or 20 or 40. So it's really important that you understand what is the identity of the school. What is it all about? That also means, understanding the student culture. So who are the students and what are they like and how do they describe themselves and describe each other? And I'll be showing you where you can get a lot of that information. You want to talk about the major that interests you, because you're going to college to study something. You're not going to hang out. You're going to hang out and do things and be active and undertake, volunteer work and go to parties and go to games and all of those things. But you're there, your mission to be at college is to study something. So you need to think about the major, look at it. What are the courses that you would be taking? Who are the professors that you're going to be working with? I highly recommend that you take notes of all of this, because once you're ready to go off to college, if you found some professors that you're really excited about, you can go visit them in the first month of school and see about working with them. So I was a professor at a prior time, and that's exactly what happened to me. I had 2 students visit me at Bates College while they were, applying to colleges. They ended up enrolling in my classes, and one ended up working with me as a TA, and one ended up doing a capstone project with me. So this work does not need to go to waste. It doesn't need to be something that you're just doing on the side. It can actually shape your experience once you go off to college. What is the academic approach of the college? How are they teaching you? What do they expect from you as a student? What are the student activities? What are the cultural forums? Is there a radio station? Is there a newspaper? Are there traditions? How much do they care about traditions? Are their traditions quirky, or are they sort of, more historical? All of these things give you insight into the college. So you have to put in some time to really understand what the college is about. The student newspaper is a great place to go because you're going to find out what students are writing about today. The radio, if you can find the radio, it's another great way to tap into the vibe of the school. What are they talking about? The other really important resource for you here is the Unigo student reviews. And I'll share that with you in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and finish the slides, and then I'll jump over to that. Tips for writing the supplements: answer the question entirely. They are evaluating you on whether you've answered the question. If you only answer part of it, or if you don't answer it directly, you might get yourself eliminated. So that's really, really important. Part of what they're doing is, did you read the question carefully? Do you know how to write an essay in response to the question? So it's just sort of a basic, like, did you do it right or not? Generalities tell us nothing. So this is something that we work very hard with our students. When you're speaking generally about your experience and you don't have examples and you're not being concrete and you're not giving the details and showing how you had an impact, it means nothing. It can be theoretical. So it's really important to do that. Your power is in the details. Your power is in the type of words that you choose and the verbs you choose, the nouns you choose, how you phrase things, short sentences, long sentences, what you have to say. It's also in the concrete references, because everybody has a different perspective on life. So how you refer to the things in your life reveals how your perspective, how you see your world and how you see others. So it's really important to be concrete and detailed. Speak from the heart as much as you can. It's really hard to trump speaking from the heart. It's just powerful. It doesn't matter what. Honesty often can trump a very, very articulate essay. And we've read many of them where the honesty of the student and sort of the genuine willingness to share is what really moved us. Be very careful. Parents, please don't edit the teen voice. As I said, this is the thing that we're all living for. We love it. We think it's adorable. It's fun. Often, teens are generally hilarious. So like, keep it, let them use their words and their voice. Don't worry about every single grammatical phrasing, especially if they're trying to say something in a unique way. It's okay if it's not perfectly grammatically correct. Don't get too caught up in commas. There are different comma rules. So that's another thing where parents can get really stressed out, and it's really not something worth losing sleep or time over. Students need to show that they're a match for the school. If the one thing that admissions officers have on their mind, are you a match? Are you one of us, is basically what they're asking. So if you haven't done your homework, they're going to know, and they're going to go with the student that's done their homework. It's just very basic. Reveal how you positively influence others. I know I've said that a couple of times. It is the zeitgeist of the moment. It is what colleges are looking for. So we highly recommend that you think about that. You'll have to, because as you can see, they're asking you about it. Let's see. Some of you are applying this year, so I just want to share with you all the importance of keeping this whole process in perspective. I'm sure you've heard it from Frank Bruni. He's amazing. I totally agree with everything he says. This is a really stressful process. Parents, you often get more stressed out than the student. Try to keep it in check. You're not applying to college. This isn't the end of the world, so really try to hold that in, because your students can feel it. And students also try to keep this the big picture. Start early. It takes time to write good essays. A natural essay, sometimes if you're lucky or you've been writing for a newspaper, or that comes more easily to you to sort of write naturally and conversationally. But for most of us, writing an essay that sounds natural takes time. Again, try the memo voice, because sometimes essays come out really well just from speaking them through. We often, with students that have trouble writing, will just transcribe what they say and come out with these amazing essays. If you're starting late, so many of you may be starting right now, very common. Many students they're sort of stepping into the game right now. Build a routine. So 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, Atomic Habits. Love that book. It's totally accurate. Try to build a routine if you're starting now, because the time will slip away. And if you even just put in 15 minutes, you're 15 minutes further away. And the thing that happens there is that your brain actually prepares. It knows, oh, this is the time of day when I work on my essay, and it will be ready to go, and it will have done some work for you in the meantime. Like maybe you'll come up with the answer to a problem that you were having in the essay, that you wanted to figure out how to present something, or you weren't sure exactly what to say, and now you've done that. So really team up with your brain, give it that exercise every day. It's really the easiest way to get through that. I know it's not easy, but it really is. It is the easiest way through this in the end. Be yourself. Again, you can't be anybody else, right? So be yourself as much as possible. That's really what admissions is looking for. And then just know that the first part of this application process is hard. It's a lot of writing. You're filling out applications. Everybody's in it together. Everybody's trying to hit the November 1st deadline and then the January 1st deadline. So there's a lot of sort of, dragging yourself through it and getting it done. And there's a lot to do, pieces to pull together, things to do with your high school. The second part of this process, you're waiting, and that is the emotional ride. And it can be very difficult. So really what I recommend, there's two things you can do to make sure that you're not suffering during this period. Build a college list where you are seriously excited about every college on that list, even your safeties, where you say, even if I got into my safety, I'd be really happy to go there. I really love that school, right? So this is really important. Admissions has gotten really difficult. I'm sure you all have been hearing the stories of students not getting in, or students only getting into a few schools. There are many, many students applying right now, because we have a real upswing in the number of high school students and the number applying. It's not going to start to plateau and then drop until 2027. So there's still a lot of students applying. There are a lot of, a much broader group of students applying. So it is competitive. If you build a list that you love, you're going to be happy, and you can kind of, if you're not focusing on one or two schools and pinning your identity on those two schools, then you're gonna go through this process. It's going to be a lot less difficult. The other thing to keep in mind is there is a certain amount of luck in this whole process. You don't know who's going to be reading your application. There's been tremendous turnover in the admissions pool. People are questioning how hard they're working, as we all know. People are leaving. They're leaving in the middle of cycles. They're having to retrain people. You might end up on the desk of a student that just graduated and they've just become a new admissions counselor. You may end up on the dean of admissions table, and you may end up on the table of somebody that is ready to quit, right? So there is a lot of luck in here, which means that you shouldn't take it personally, and you really don't have control over what's happening. So once your application is out, the extent to which you can say, it's out of my hands and whatever's going to happen is what is going to happen, is really the most easy way to get through this process and not be kind of on an emotional roller coaster week after week after week in the winter. It's your senior year, so please try to just let the process take its course. And, everything kind of comes out in March. So there are spurts. Some applications will come out in December. Some will come out mid-January. Then there's a long waiting period. A bunch come out in March. And then the end of March, first week of April, there's sort of the release of all the final applications. And that's kind of the most emotional period. Okay. So let's see. That is it. I am going to share a slide, a different, the Unigo Student Reviews website with you all, because it is really super helpful. It's one of my favorite resources. So let me just get set up here. Here we go. So I'm going to show you the Google search just so that you can all see it. So you can see here, I've put Unigo Clemson University, and I've come up with Clemson University at Unigo, right? And My favorite part, let me just open this up a bit so it's not squished. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. So first of all, acceptance rate, SAT and ACT range. And then you get into these really cool kind of how students have rated their school. So how politically active are students? At Clemson, most of them are either, know about events and vote, or they participate. There are schools that say there's nothing we won't protest. Very different school, right? Intellectual conversations. Here we say, 58% of students are saying there are usually conversations to be found all the time, including weekends. So that's pretty good. 78% of students are saying that intellectual conversation is going on most of the time. You're not going to find that at every university. Do you feel safe on campus? What's the sports culture like? Is arts culture a priority? Here's some other really great ones. How available are your professors now? This one is fascinating to me as well, because again, I used to be a professor. Sometimes you'll see 88%, they're always available. That's amazing. Sometimes you'll see at a school, like an Ivy League school, where you're like, well, they must be available all the time. This is a very reputable school. It's like 20, right? So I think this is one of the most interesting data points here. They keep regular office hours. Who doesn't? They have to. That's part of the job. So that doesn't give us a whole lot of information, but the how available they are really does. Is this a fraternity sorority life school? Is it a Greek school? This is really important. Some schools, yeah, this one says plenty of people join. Some schools say something like 30, 40%. It's everything, right? Could be even higher than that. Do students drink? Do they do drugs? You have a lot of information in here, statistics about how students are measuring the kind of core qualities of their school. And then you have a whole bunch of other great information about facilities, size of class, and you can just go through these. What's your overall opinion of Clemson? What's your overall opinion of the students? How would you describe the students? What would you recommend to a freshman? There are a ton of great questions in here. Of course, you don't just read one, you read many, but this is the way that you're really going to get the insight into what is student life like? What is the vibe of the campus? All of the stuff that they're not going to give you on the marketing website. This is where you have students talking about what it's like to be a student at the school. So it's a really, really great resource. And we talk about it all the time. And I still really enjoy looking at it. So let's see here. We are going to open up for questions. We also put in chat, if you're interested in joining our Facebook, we are starting to post various resources that we use. So we'll be posting our list of supplement questions, which you have to go in and dig out of the Common App on your own. We'll be posting those tomorrow. We have other things like how to do an interview or how to do a resume. We'll be posting these things over the year if you're interested in kind of seeing the tools that we're using behind the scenes. And then we've also got a feedback form that Shanley has pasted into the chat. Is that right, Shanley? Do we have that in the chat?
I can't do it in the chat.
Okay. So
sorry.
let me see. I think I have it. So let me go find it.
I've got the link here.
You've got the link. Okay. Are you able to pass the link to me?
Yes, I am. I'll do that right now. Sorry
Okay,
about
this is
that.
fun. And then we'll go ahead and take some questions, but yeah, we're always looking to improve, and we love any feedback you have or anything that you'd like to hear more of. We are looking to at the possibility of interviewing a Stanford admissions, retired Stanford admissions person that I'm good friends with in the next month. Who I've been colleagues with for a very long time, just to talk about what the admissions process is like. But if there's things that you would like, you feel that there's not enough discussion about them and you would like to see a webinar on them, we're very happy to put some things together. So let's see, Shanley, where did we put that? Did you post it in chat to me?
I put it in chat to you, to the
on Slack.
No, in this webinar chat.
Oh, there it is. Okay, great. So, and then I will go ahead and post it for everyone.
Thank you.
I think that will do it. Let me know if that went through. It should have. Yeah, it looks like it did.
It
So
did.
let's go ahead and take some questions. I'm happy to jump back on any of the slides that I went through. Shanley, I'll let you let me
Yeah.
know what's come up.
Yes, we do have a question. What words or statements should be avoided in essays?
What words or statements? That's a great question. So, this is one that I'm always a little bit surprised because I believe in being critical. But one thing I notice is that admissions readers and also high school counselors really don't want you to say anything bad about your teachers or your high school. So that's really important. You don't want to do that. You want to be careful using anything that might be considered in bad taste. So, and sometimes we've had conversations around students using slang, for example, in a way that was a little, felt like maybe it would be risky. So that's something where if you are using words that are kind of in your own language and somebody else feels that they're inappropriate, it's just something that you can pass it by a few readers and sort of see what they think. But in general, you don't want to say anything that is demeaning of anybody or too critical of your school. Admissions readers kind of identify with administrative offices at high schools. And so they're not, they kind of feel a little defensive. So you don't want to put down your teachers or you really don't want to put down anybody, I suppose. Other than that, I think, yeah, I can't think of any other words or phrasing that would be kind of inappropriate. I mean, we will change, we will recommend for a student if we get a feeling, right? So sometimes we get a feeling that something is a little arrogant, like if a student is saying something like they're being, they really do want you to toot your horn. So there's this weird balance going on. Like, how do you do this? They do want you to talk about your accomplishments and what you've done and see your confidence. But if you're waning on the side of sort of entitlement or privilege or, I'm better than everyone else, arrogance, one thing they really love is humility. So you can show humility even as you're kind of sharing your accomplishments. And that's sort of the secret spot, so to say. But that would be another thing to sort of watch out for. And generally what happens for us with students is they're usually not arrogant. It's very rare that we have a student that's like just blatantly arrogant, but they're trying to kind of puff themselves up. And in the process of doing that, they kind of go too far, right? And so then we kind of help them to reel it back in. I hope that was helpful. That's what I can think of off the top of my head.
Right. We do have one other question. I think it's primarily to address questions around the impact over time of extracurriculars and how that affects admissions rates. So if somebody has been involved consistently with a university doing research over time, does that increase their chances of getting into that university?
Okay, great question. So a couple things here. First of all, I'm just going to talk about extracurriculars. Colleges really want to see that you've committed to something, right? And ideally, they like to see that you've been committed over a period of time and stayed committed. So at one point, and this was early in my career, so back in 2007, 2008, students thought that it was great just to do as much as you possibly could, start an NGO, like do as much as you possibly can. And that really is not the trend. That trend, I'm not even sure that was really ever super attractive to admissions office. What they really want to see is that you've committed to something and you're sticking with it and you're developing yourself through that. So less is more. For research, research is very, it's prized, and there are even admissions offices where they're giving you extra points for having done research because they are research institutions and they're looking for students that are going to take on research, because that's sort of the next step of academics is to go into a master's or a PhD and do research. So if you are continuing that work at that school and the professor knows who you are, and there's sort of, you have a letter of support from that professor, it's possible that that could have a strong impact. Now, for schools like Stanford and the Ivies, maybe not. So faculty don't have necessarily a whole lot of weight or pull. What we are seeing, as you all probably know, there are quite a few companies that have emerged that are helping students to get research positions on college campuses. So this isn't the novel thing that it used to be, say, 3-4 years ago. Before, it used to be, you really had to reach out to a professor and find somebody that was willing to bring you on. And often you had to write 50 or 60 letters. And now you can go with AI and Spirit. They're quite polyvalent. There's or polyvalent, is that what it is? There are quite a few vendors out there that are actually placing you with graduate students or professors to do research. So it's not as novel as it used to be. Having said that, it's still really important. And I would say it's of greatest importance to the student because it really helps them to dive deep into academics and understand the pursuit of research, the pursuit of ideas, science, whatever it is they're interested in. They usually improve their writing. Sometimes they learn how to code or do technical skills. So it's definitely still very impressive no matter how you got there. Whether it gets you into the school, we've definitely seen it's helped students in the past, depending on which school it is, but there's no guarantees for sure. And schools like Stanford, even, they won't even let the dean of the medical school tell them to admit a student. So they're very, very protective, and that's very common in the most competitive schools. They don't really want to be told that they should admit someone because someone has a connection or they worked with somebody or something like that. So they can be sensitive about it. But generally speaking, if you have a letter of support and the support is very strong, absolutely that can help your application at that school.
All right. And then we have a question on writing about athletics. Could you potentially elaborate on, let's say a student has really found their character and developed and had a lot of growth in athletics? Would you say not to write about that, or would you encourage that student to find a way to write about it?
I think it's important to find a way to write about it. And again, you do that by really drilling in on the details so that the sports just becomes the background and the kind of inner world of relationship with the athletic activity is the content. So it's really the heart of the story. So that's really how you do it. So like the girl that was writing about the erg machine, it was really, just sort of her challenge of pushing herself, of using this machine, of getting up in the morning. So it was a bit, you want to always be careful with the sports essays because they can kind of fall into, I worked really hard and then I succeeded, which, the hard kind of working hard is what everybody does. So you want to really get into more, what did you work through? What was difficult? Did you have to develop patience? Did you have to develop sort of, your own develop strength inside of yourself to be able to work through the noise in your head? So it's just always, and they have this exercise in writing where they go, and what's underneath that, or in psychology, I think as well, right? And what's underneath that, and what's underneath that, and what's underneath that. So I think when you start to kind of make, this is what I learned. Okay, well, what specifically did you learn from that? And what specifically did you learn from that? And you just start to drill in until you're really at the kernel of what it is that you've done inside of yourself, inside of your person to succeed at the sport or to find yourself. And absolutely, I've read beautiful essays on athletics, so absolutely it can be done, and you can make, as long as you're being really personal and specific to who you are, you can stand out.
Great, thank you. This question is about having a legacy with a university. Is it now in this climate taboo to mention your family's long-standing relationship with the university?
Great question. So as everyone's aware, the kind of ruling. Now, there has been already, like Amherst, Johns Hopkins, there have been schools that have been eliminating legacy. But the affirmative action ruling this year has really brought to light, for many people and for many schools, that what many people perceive as an unfairness in the admission system. So you'll know because the college will actually ask you if somebody in your family attended the school. So if they're asking for that information, then they want to know it. Some schools will probably not consider it, or they may change their policy on giving an extra point for it. It's really hard to know, but it is a really hard topic, or hot topic this year. I would say, if your family went and there's nowhere to share about that, you could write in an additional statement that's very, very short, that says something about, my parents always talked about the XYZ on campus and I can't wait to check it out, or something kind of very personal, or my grandfather or grandmother, did this at the university. And I'm looking forward to carrying on. It would be amazing to kind of honor them by carrying on their legacy or something like that. So you can always put that in if it's not in the application. Mostly what we see is that there's a place on the application and they ask you, do you have any family members? The other thing is that they're asking where your parents went to school, so they know where they went to school. So if you're looking to, if you're kind of looking at parental legacy, then yes, they know that, and they may be including it as part of their evaluation. There are quite a few schools that do give extra evaluation, extra weight to applications of students that have legacy.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. This is a question about a letter of recommendation. So if somebody can provide a strong letter of recommendation, but as a non-native English speaker, is it still a good idea to have that letter if it's not going to be maybe perfectly grammatically correct?
Yeah, great question. So what you might do, if this is possible, right? So I've done this before where parents have been concerned about a letter, and so I've had them send it to me, because really students are not supposed to read their letters of recommendation. They actually sign an agreement inside of their application not to. It's most explicitly tied to their teacher and counselor recommendation letters. So the outside letter is sort of a little bit in a more gray terrain. But you can, if the writer is comfortable with it, is say, do you mind sending it to this person? And they'll just, read it over. That might be a little uncomfortable. So I really wouldn't worry about it. If they write English well enough, they're going to understand the letter. And so as long as it's well written and shows a lot of kind of, admiration or affection for the student, I'm sure it will be fine.
Wonderful. Thanks. All right. I think that's all of the questions for this evening.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. It's always a delight to speak to people. And again, we'd love to get your feedback and know if there are any topics that you'd like to hear more about. We're working on doing more webinars and reaching out to more people. If you're looking for help with your college essays this semester, please reach out. We have quite a few students that are wrapping up, so we have space to take on a few students. If you are looking for help to apply to college next semester and want some guidance, we also love to speak with you. We do a free consultation, kind of get a sense of who your student is, and give you some advice on things to do, and suggest ways in which we might be of help to you. So we'd love to talk to you. You will be receiving an email. It's probably already in your inbox with a handout. We will be posting those supplements on Facebook tomorrow, and then we will send out via Calendly, or I think that's how we do it, via Calendly, or just get a list of everybody's email and send you out the recording. So we hope you'll have time to look it all over. So thanks again for being here. And we'll see you next time.